You should start a human performance podcast. Honestly, it's worth all the hard work putting it all together. I am Dr. Phil Price. I am a senior lecturer in strength and conditioning and biomechanics, and I am the host of the Progress Theory, and I am obsessed with learning about human performance. And the more you learn about human performance, the more you realise that there's a lot you don't actually know. So how can I get access to as much information about human performance as possible? Not only do I need to absorb different information, I need to hear loads of different viewpoints as well. Now, I recommend everyone to become a voracious reader, and I think that I am, but I also need more to go alongside my reading. Sure, I reflect, I write, I teach, and that's why I love Substack, which you can access in the link below, and this YouTube channel. Please subscribe. But a lot of my light bulb moments when you suddenly have a breakthrough idea or suddenly you question everything that you thought to be true about a particular topic have all come from conversations. And that's conversations with scientists, athletes, coaches, and even from people with a completely different area of expertise. And this is why I podcast. And you should too. It has become immeasurable for my learning, so much so that this video will go through 6 key reasons why I think that you should start a human performance podcast. But before we start, I just want to give a huge shout out to this video's sponsor, Cult Media. Matt from Cult Media has worked on the Progress Theory with me since season 3, and it's taken the podcast to the next level. Cult Media will work with you to set up your workflow for your podcast, including your research, your sound engineering for your podcast, your post-production, and to help you maximize your podcast reach. Every detail is covered, all of which is necessary for the longevity of your podcast. Head to www.cult, that's cult with a K, .media, and let Cult Media help you develop the best podcast for your brand. Number 1, there seemed to be a disconnect between academics and coaches. One of the issues I was seeing on social media was that there was this disconnect between academics and coaches. On the one side, you had coaches saying how academics didn't understand the practical side of things, and that a lot of the research that they were developing was actually quite limited because they couldn't use that information in their own practice. And while making these criticisms, they would often criticize the academic for probably not being as smart as they think that they are. On the other side, you had the academics being critical of coaches, saying they weren't being necessarily enough evidence-based, and that they were often misinterpreting the research. And the result of this was leading to a lot of charlatans popping up in the training space on social media. Now, all of this didn't really make sense to me, and I think a lot of this was exacerbated, usually for social media clout. However, what I thought was missing, or at least wasn't really being shown online, was the working together of academics and coaches. Both have specific skills that, when working together, can really take the expertise in the field up to the next level. In fact, the more coaches and scientists that I actually interviewed made me realise that everyone really was actually on the same page. We can work together, learn from each other, and it's something that I've certainly benefited from when I started the podcast. Number 2, a lack of understanding or a misinterpretation of the research. Now, you probably know that social media is full of snake oil salesmen, and these people often deliberately deceive their audience, often claiming that their approach or product is science-backed, but in reality what they've done is that they've poorly utilised the research in order for them to gain financially. Now, these are generally easy to spot. However, it's when a certain idea that's been misinterpreted, whether deliberately or subconsciously, starts to really gather popularity on social media, and this is often harder to see. Myth busting, where professionals try to dispel training myths and explain where the myth might have come from, is actually quite popular. In season 5 of the Progress Theory podcast, I focused my efforts on learning as much as possible about hybrid training, and a lot of that was trying to understand why the interference effect was being grossly misinterpreted within the social media space. And in turn, I then wrote a book to try and help others understand where this misinterpretation has come from and why its effect has been grossly overestimated for performance. So think about it. Could you create a human performance podcast where you start dispelling some very popular online myths? I bet you can. Number 3, I have a specific question that I need answering. Normally when you have a question, you go to Google or YouTube, or more often now people are going to use AI. These are great resources, but quite often your question is very unique to you and your experiences. Often because it's come up in practice, particularly if you're an athlete or a coach, and therefore these resources don't always help you. Not fully anyway. A podcast gives you a platform which allows you to ask these specific questions to someone else that has a wealth of experience that you can really learn from. Because in these cases, you can give context to the question. You can provide nuance to the experiences that led to this question. And so by providing better information, to someone with a wealth of experience, you can then get a better answer. Now, Sean Seal, who hosts one of my favourite podcasts, Upside Strength, has used this approach to great effect. He had a lot of questions around the physiology of training because of what he was seeing in his own coaching, and then went out and interviewed many coaches and athletes and scientists, experts in these areas. And we get to see the process of him asking the right questions and finding the right answers to the questions that he had from his coaching. And in the process, he developed loads of great resources, which ended up forming part of his own business model. So in short, podcasting takes answering your questions to the next level. Number 4, I want to write books. Now, I'm a teacher, I'm a writer, and I'm a researcher. I enjoy writing because it allows me to reflect and really present my ideas. And when you write a popular science book, you have to go out and interview experts in the area. And this provides a lot of the resources for the book. I did this for my book, The Science of Hybrid Training. The only difference is I actually published all of the interviews online. My interviews were the podcast. I was being transparent with all the information that I was getting. I think that's important. I think we need to be open and really share our resources because then others can benefit from them too. And if you're interested in purchasing The Science of Hybrid Training, it is available from Amazon and there is a link below. Number 5, learn broad. I am an advocate for learning broadly. I think learning topics outside your area of expertise indirectly improves your thinking and your approach to your area of expertise. Many top scientists often have hobbies which are completely unrelated to their area of expertise. And these hobbies indirectly help them as a scientist, for example. Many of the Nobel Prize winners often have other hobbies that are completely unrelated to their field that they won their Nobel Prize in. And the book Originals by Adam Grant really shows this very well. Learning broad widens your thinking. Creativity is just as important in the sciences as it is in the arts. So broadening your knowledge helps how you approach your traditional tasks. Therefore, if I have an opportunity to interview someone on the podcast in an area that I know nothing about but I feel is really interesting, I really jump at the task because indirectly I feel that I'm going to benefit from that. It's certainly not wasted time, and it always ends up being a really fascinating discussion which opens my eyes to new ways of approaching human performance. And number 6, final one, it's fun. Learning should be fun. Discussing interesting topics with experts is fun. And podcasting makes you want to learn more. In fact, you could probably ignore all the other 5 key elements which I've mentioned in this video. If you find podcasting fun, that's more than enough reason to do it. And to really highlight this point, I want you to think about this. Have you ever had a conversation with a friend or a group of friends, and at the end of it you thought, oh, that would have made a really good podcast? Well, it probably would, and you should publish it. So because of this, you should start a podcast. Anyway, did I miss anything? Let me know in the comments. And please, if you're interested in human performance, give The Progress Theory a subscribe. I'll see you in the next video.